Auburn had a good defense last season, but were the results a little skewed? And is this defense overrated?
Weekend Tailgate brought to you by our friends at the Rage Room. If you are just having yourself kind of a day, the Rage Room is the place to go get that stress out. Longtime sponsors of the War Report, particularly if you're in the Opelika area, 1510 2nd Ave, Opelika, Alabama. If you're in Birmingham, 2616 7th Ave, South Birmingham, that's downtown Alabama. They have axe throwing in Birmingham. A little birdie, Ike, tells me that axe throwing may be coming to an Opelika Rage Room near you. So go get that rage out. Don't slap your boss. Don't slap anybody. Don't assault anybody. Go to the Rage Room. Your non-assault way of de-stressing these days. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Guys, do us a favor. We are on the road. Media Days is on the way. And you can help sponsor our content by becoming a patron member. $5.99 a month will get you there. We're talking defense tonight. We talk a lot of Auburn football here, but you want to become a member. We got some changes coming to the channel here in the next few weeks. So if you are not a member, please become a member, because it's going to be some stuff that's going to be member only here. Family only business. That's what we got going on at the War Report. Also, you can give that gift of the War Report. Help somebody else join the family by hitting that gifted membership button. See if we can get 20 given away. Smash that gifted membership button for us, please. And our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORTER to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. As I mentioned before, if life is stressing you out, hit the Rage Room, then visit the Rogue Shop. RogueShop.com. Use code REPORT. I got Richard, longtime sponsor of the show. We appreciate him for sponsoring this segment, helping us out here. He's dropped a little something extra in there for everybody who uses code REPORT, so you definitely want to lock in with him. And our friends at the Vibe Vault. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite I in Phoenix City, Alabama. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. Just got lined up to this week at the Vibe Vault, so the line is extra crispy fresh. You can get extra crispy fresh. Extra crispy fresh. That's a tongue twister. You can get fresh for the weekend with our friends at the Vibe Vault. We appreciate them. Also, guys, visit us on podcasts, every single podcast platform. The War Report is there, bringing you guys lots of great audio-only content. The Auburn Express, Up-Tempo, College Loop, Just a Sec, and the War Report Gaming Channel with a little something different there. Do us a favor. Head over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube Music, wherever you listen to podcasts, and smash that alerts button. And also turn on automatic downloads for our show. This helps us more than you guys know. We appreciate you for helping us do that.
Yes, indeed. Appreciate everybody who is jumping in here with us today. Today, we're going to be talking about defense. I do recognize the rather large situation that's happening with Auburn basketball and Tahaad Pettiford deciding he is going to be returning to the Plains. We will speak on that later in the show if there is time. Otherwise, we'll devote some Lobtown time to that later this week as well. But let's get to the subject at hand, and that is the Auburn defense. Mike G, social media, and some people in the comment section, when we talk about the Auburn defense, have told me Auburn's defense was okay, but overrated last season. And the numbers to them bear that out. We're going to look at the numbers and we're going to talk about this defense. But I don't know. I feel like they're being a little disrespectful to Auburn's defense here in the conversation around that defense. But again, listen, y'all know we just going to bring the statistics to y'all. We're going to talk about what the numbers say that this defense did in their performance last year and let the numbers do their talking. And then we will develop whatever kind of talking points that we want to from those numbers. But just before we get into the numbers, What are your thoughts on the idea that the defense was maybe a little overrated last year, and maybe they have further to go this year than people think?
Um, Believe it or not, I could maybe see how somebody arrives at that point that they were a little overrated. But honestly, when you look at what they were able to do, and this is why you have to look at more than just stats when evaluating this. You have to watch how they play, understand if guys are in position, out of position, and there are some stats that don't lie, and there are some stats that do kind of tell a different story. Ultimately, if you watch this, nobody who watched Auburn football defensively truly and understood what they were watching is saying that this defense was overrated. That's not the first word I would choose to describe them. It's not the first word. You know, a lot of people who do what we do, also at a high level, would choose to describe them. There's a reason why Auburn is climbing preseason lists. And people sound crazy. If you're going to take a flyer on anybody in the preseason right now, a lot of people are looking at Auburn saying they're poised for the biggest jump. Well, guess what? That's in large part because of their defense. Now, we'll get into it later. The whole, well, you didn't play nobody. Well, you can only play who's on the schedule. So that's it. And if they had flopped completely and given up 50 points per game, what would you be saying then?
Right.
So they did what they could do, and they're going to be better this year. Of the key pieces of the defense are young, they're athletic, and they're 1 year more experienced in a system with a coach who Auburn just made the second highest paid assistant in the country. That's not money you shell out when they're overrated.
Yeah.
And I don't think Auburn made a mistake here. Look at DJ Durkin's career, man. Would you rate any of the defenses he's had in the SEC over the last few years as overrated? He's not an overrated coach.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. His track record is too long. It's too good. It's produced too many top-end results for you to look at what he's doing and say it's overrated. So
yeah, I think for it being year one in that defense, the defense performed admirably. And to your
Year
point,
one.
a second year under that coordinator should yield better results. But let's look at what the results were, right? Like, let's not, pretend like we don't have numbers to look at this stuff. The first thing that I actually want to look at is just where the stats were, right? Like, what stats did Auburn do in their performance last year? And what things do we need to do what things did they need to do in that performance to get better at, right? So if you look at the points per game surrendered for Auburn last season, 21.3, that was 28th in the country, an SEC rank of 8th, which is crazy to think how good the defenses in the SEC were last season, but that gives them right around the middle of the conference and only giving up just above 3 touchdowns per game. But that's good for a top 30 defense in the country, right? Yards per game average, they gave up 330.8, which is good for 31st and 9th in the conference. Passing yards surrendered were 213, which is good for 52nd in the country, 8th in the conference. Rushing yards, they gave up a measly 117th, which is 27th in the country, 5th in the conference. Third down defense, this is the one that everybody harps on, 39.7%, which was tied for 75th in the country, which is about average, right? This is out of 138 FBS teams, tied for 11th in the conference, which is not good. Fourth down defense, though, is really like the third down defense number is a little deceptive because Auburn gave up so many yards on third downs that offenses were in a comfortable enough range on fourth down to go for it a lot. And Auburn surrendered 52.6% of those, good for 66th in the country, 11th in the conference. Turnovers gained 13 for 104 and tied for 104 in the country. Not really good at forcing turnovers last year. Next to last, 15th in the conference. First down defense. This is where Auburn actually did really well. They didn't surrender a ton of first downs last year. 213 total first downs, 7th in the country, 3rd in the conference. Red zone defense tied for 31st and 8th in the conference at 78.4%. When you look at those numbers, what kind of story do you think they tell, Mike G, about where Auburn was strong and where Auburn has drastic room for improvement? Now, we've already talked about a lot of this stuff on different episodes, but still, just by the numbers, what are you feeling when you look at those numbers in that defense?
Yeah, I would say, points per game, obviously they were strong. Auburn's defense, we talked about this on a previous show. If they scored 28 points offensively, that would have been good enough to win almost every single game they lost last year.
Yeah.
So if you're telling me that you have a chance to win every single game on your schedule that you scored under 30 points, I would tell you that your defense is doing the job and helping keep you in games. That's I don't even know how that could be debated. Like that you know, those stats are stats that anybody would take. And it, you know, if you're pointing at Auburn and you're saying, "Oh, well, it wasn't that good, they were overrated," and blah blah, you're just saying that because it's not your team. If it was your team was giving up on average less than 24 points
let's
per
be
game.
clear. There's a lot of Auburn fans who feel this way about this defense.
Yeah. And look, I'm not here to tell them that their feelings are invalid. I'm here to tell them that they're wrong. So the defense kept Auburn in games. Was it perfect? No. So if you're judging, if the barometer that you're using to judge them is perfection or nothing, okay. But
yeah, and so here's what I will
here.
say. Here's what I will say is that I don't think that anybody, like, I think it's a little far-fetched to say that this defense was great last year. They were good and definitely good enough to win games. The numbers don't say great, though. They say, okay, but like to be in the top half of the country, and again, out of 138 FBS schools, you are in really the top 50 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 statistical categories that you rate defense in out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 5 of those 8, you're in the top 50, and all but one of them, you're in the top half of the country. That's a pretty good defense. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what to say when you're playing that well on the defensive side of the ball that you could say this is a bad defense.
I'm gonna push back a little bit on the. I agree with you in a sense that, you know, the numbers don't say grade all around, all things considered. But I think relative to where they were at and who they had to work with, they did get the most out of the talent for the most part. I think
agree with that for sure.
I think they were great in some areas, and there's room for growth in some other areas. So if they hold serve in the areas that they were great, and they improve the areas that they need improvement in, and as far as the talent outgoing, I'm telling you, there's not a ton of drop off. I love it.
Let's talk about
Eugene Asante, but
let's talk about that one for a second, though. You got drafted players for Auburn last year. Only one of those guys was on the defensive side of the ball, and that's J-Mac, right? Now, there are other guys who got opportunities to go to the league and will likely be NFL players. But as far as draftable NFL talent, this draft year, you're going to have multiple guys on that defense that are draft eligible and should be in conversations about being drafted, right? Like, Keldrick Falk is, and we'll talk about him probably on this upcoming Auburn Express episode when we break down not probably. When we talk about defensive line, we will absolutely talk about Keldrick Falk and what he is poised to do this season. But to your point, the talent that Auburn lost last year, you could argue Auburn upgraded at the vast majority. Now, to be seen whether or not there's going to be an upgrade at the Buck linebacker with J-Mac going out, right, and Keyron Crawford stepping up and some other guys getting more opportunities there. But, and this is no disrespect, I think Eugene Asante is amazing, but DeMarcus Riddick is the guy who's filling his shoes.
Yeah.
You're going to have DeMarcus Riddick play in the role that Eugene Asante was in last year, and he has the potential to be a great linebacker. Eugene Asante, really good, solid linebacker. I'd argue the potential for DeMarcus Riddick is at like all SEC caliber type of talent there at the linebacker position.
That's where I was going. Essentially, love Eugene, but Auburn can and has the personnel to upgrade from the production that they got from Eugene. He brought experience. I think. Yeah, I don't want to poo-poo his contribution to Auburn football over the last couple of years at all.
Yeah,
but
not at all.
The message and the goal from day one has been, we need to upgrade the talent. We need to close the talent gap. Like, they're doing it.
Yeah.
And a lot of those guys played last year on defense and will have a chance this year to come back 1 year stronger, 1 year smarter, 1 year more experienced in the system with an opportunity to play downhill, play faster, play without thinking, play instinctually and react. DeMarcus Riddick is one of those guys. We talked about him specifically. Whenever we get a chance to sit down with a head coach, and they bring up certain guys specifically, and I'm not talking about he's a great moral leader for us, and we love his voice. No. When the coach is talking about his skill, and he says, "Whoa, he's got that dog in him," and he looks excited talking about it. That's what Hugh Freeze looked like talking about DeMarcus Riddick. He brings him up. He was like, "Oh man, Mike, he had a guy dead to rights in the Missouri game, and if he had just taken the right angle on the tackle, that ball runner was dead." And when a coach can remember, think about how much football Hugh Freeze has forgotten more football than we've probably seen. So when he remembers specific plays, when he remembers specific players, it is significant. And that's, I started to get really excited. Now, I've been a big DeMarcus Riddick guy from the beginning. And what this defense did last year, it's hard when you correlate. It's hard not to get excited when you correlate what we've heard about defense, what defensive practice is like, how guys are learning in the system, how everybody seems to know where they're going and they're excited about the direction of the defense. Look at what they did last year, keeping Auburn in games late. And this year, with this schedule, they have an opportunity to be even better.
Yeah, and there's definitely room for improvement, right? Like these numbers again aren't eye-popping, right? They're numbers where they're okay. And here I think the number that Auburn fans need to make sure that they are focusing on, though, and the one that will get Auburn wins is how many points are they giving up, right? Like,
exactly. Yes.
Now, this is something that I said over and over again. Yeah, they got to get way better in turnovers, but just like this is something I said over and over again about Auburn last year. It was very bend but don't break. Very bend but don't break. Right? They're going to give up yards, and then they're going to bow up at the time where it's going to be they're just outside of field goal range, and then they'll force a punt. And so that's got to improve, but it helps you to make sure that you're continuing to not give up points consistently. And to the point that you made to start this off, I think Auburn did well enough defensively to win more football games. And you'd probably think a little bit more highly of this defense had Auburn won some of those games that they didn't win, because in people's minds, they're thinking about, oh, they surrendered the late game touchdown versus Missouri. They should have been able to stop them there. Right. The defense, like that's not even something I'm making up. That's literally someone's argument is that the defense lost that game at the end because they didn't get the stop on that final drive versus Missouri. Or, just, of course, pointing out the third down defense being a thing and saying, well, if they were better on third down, then the defense would have been. And I agree. Third down defense, fourth down defense, absolutely
it was bad. Improve. It was bad. Yeah, for sure.
And so this defense definitely has places for improvement. Not really particularly great at rushing the passer, right? Not great at forcing turnovers. There's a lot of things left for this defense to improve upon. But to the point that you've made, I think that the talent upgrades in certain spots will have incremental impacts on that throughout the game. And the depth will be better.
Yeah, I just want to remind people, in the 7 games Auburn lost last year, they scored 14 points, 14 points, 21 points, 13 points, 17 points, 10 points. I'm sorry, 7 points and 14 points. I don't know what else to say to that.
Yeah.
Right. And if you look at the other side of that, the teams that beat them scored 21 points, 24 points, 27 points, 31 points, 21 points, 17 points, 28 points. Absolutely nobody ran away from Auburn last year. The offense statistically was better. They moved the ball better at times. Jarquez Hunter got a greater share than he did the year before. Not nearly enough, if you ask me. I do buy some of what Hugh Freeze is saying about the flow of the game and the offense and not running into stacked boxes. And, I think a lot of that has to do with play calling and bad play calls to get you behind the chains. But they're going to improve that. One way to improve that is just by being better than the other guy in front of you. Right. See, play calling always looks a lot better when your offensive line can just beat their defensive line.
Yeah. When the dudes are making plays, you look like a genius play caller.
Yeah. So play call, great play call. Well, your offensive line is whooping their ass. So there are a lot of things that work better. Bad calls look average. Average calls look great.
Right.
When your guys are that much better than their guys. But the numbers that I just spit at you should be the most telling. If this defense was so overrated, any of the teams that I mentioned, Auburn had a top 15 schedule in the country, should have just run away from Auburn.
Well, let's talk about the opposition right here for a sec, because I do have numbers on that as well of what the opponents were doing average wise, right? So these were the statistical averages in the top 4 statistical categories for offenses last year of what they did. 27.6 points per game is where the averages were, and that is good for 67.4 average national rank of Auburn's opponents. This is all opponents, not just SEC opponents. Yards per game average 378 yards. That is good for a 69.9% national rank average. Passing yards per game 217.3. That's good for 74.3 national rank average. And rush offense 166.2. That's good for 61.1. So the argument would say Auburn didn't play any good offenses. So of course their numbers are going to look decent against these bums that they're playing against, right? This is the old Michael Jordan played against plumbers argument. Of course he looked good because he wasn't playing against anybody who was worth a damn.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Auburn had 28 points given up after a turnover on downs by the offense last year. 28 points. You give the ball up, they score. All but one of those drives was in opposing territory, like on your side of the field.
Right.
So they had a short field to work with. And they score, and we're like, oh, the defense gave. No, did the defense really give that up?
I think that's the most impressive thing about the number of points per game that the defense gave up is how routinely that defense was put in scenarios in which
situations.
The field position was absolutely awful. That's the most impressive thing. And again, I think being ranked in the top 30 in the country, considering where your offense was surrendering the football back to the other team, that's impressive to me. I'm sorry.
Right. So think about it this way. We know that they weren't able to get off the field on third downs, but a lot of those situations were really, really tough situations that they were being put in. That's not to excuse it. You got to go out there and you got to play, every drive is a new game. If you're the defense, it's a chance to start over and you're trying to win the game within the game. Right. Is to win every drive, get the other offense off the field, get your offense back on the field. And they did that. The numbers bear it out. Think about the Iron Bowl, for example, is a perfect example of how the defense kept Auburn in games. You're getting nothing offensively, and they turned Alabama over 4 times.
Right.
Turned them over. Interceptions, fumbles. I mean, they got you the ball back. And the same way that those offenses scored on Auburn after a turnover on downs by Auburn, if you are scoring off the turnovers being created, you win that Iron Bowl. A touchdown after every time they get you the ball back, you win. So I think they performed admirably. And this is why I say when you look at, you have to watch. You can't just look at statistics and say, oh, well, they rank here and there. You got to watch the games. And then maybe your overrated turns into an underrated. When you watch at the situations they were put in, you think, wow, they came up with 4 turnovers against Alabama on the road. Ryan Williams had a terrible day. Thanks in large part to Auburn. So in my mind, this is it's exciting for me. You don't go out and you don't drop the bag on DJ Durkin for an overrated defense. Multiple M's in the bank. Multiple M's. He got paid. So I'm really excited about what they're going to do. The other side of this, though, who did they play? Right before we started recording, we talked about it. They faced like 8 or 9 NFL draft picks in the first 3 rounds of the draft offensively.
Mm-hmm.
Guys who are no slouches. Come on, man. They went against some really, really good offensive lines. Like, when I tell you these guards and tackles that they were going against, 2 of them first-round picks. This was no easy task for Auburn this year. I like where they're headed. And look, man, if they can just hold serve, because let's be clear, I wouldn't call it a championship level defense last year, but they played well enough that with average offense, Auburn could have been in contention for the SEC crown going into November. Now, if that sounds crazy to you, me talking about a 5-7 football team, I will remind you, none of those teams that they lost to blew Auburn out. None of them. Vanderbilt scored, before November, right? But just before November, Missouri managed 21 points. They have the most prolific, they had one of the most prolific QB wide receiver combinations in the country coming into that game. Luther Burden, Brady Cook. Luther was one of those guys offensively I talked about that this defense had to go against. Was he hurt in that game?
No. He
wasn't hurt in that game? Okay, I just want to make sure. I know Brady Cook was hurt, but I couldn't remember if Luther Burden was hurt as well, too. They didn't pop off. I just don't know how you look at what they did and say, oh, well, this is an overrated defense. Get real. This defense is underrated. Guys, there are names on this roster that nobody nationally is talking about. I think Malik Blockton should be being talked about more. You already know how I feel about DeMarcus Riddick, Ken Lee, Kieron Crawford. These guys are going to be household names by October. Flat out. They're going to be household names. But you go back and you look at that game against Missouri, right? And I'm staring at the box score, and where's that big game from Luther Burden? 6 catches for 49 yards, no touchdowns. Pretty average for him. As a matter of fact, not a single TD from any Missouri receiver in that game. None. Had a couple touchdowns on the ground and some field goals, and that was it.
Yeah. But the one thing I want to point out from these statistics, and this is the other thing that I looked at, is, and I'll bring them back up here on the screen, and it goes hand in hand with something that you said already, right? Which is, my bad. I don't know why I just did that. Boom. Something that you already said, which is they didn't make their schedule. They play who they've got to play that's on their schedule, right?
Right.
And when you look at these average statistics, when I look at that versus what Auburn surrendered to that team, right? And so, for instance, I'll just kind of give you a for instance for what statistically was one of the better offenses that Auburn faced, which is Arkansas, oddly enough. Arkansas is on the season, they were ranked 10th in yards per game, 18th in passing yards per game, and 34th in rushing yards per game, right? And they score 30.9 points per game. In the Auburn game, they scored 24. And so if I look at that across the entirety of the season, on average, Auburn was holding opponents 4.6 points per game below their average. Auburn was holding teams 40.8 yards below their average per game, 3.5 passing yards and 41 rushing yards below what they average. So regardless of what you think about how good the other opponents are, Auburn held them below what they average by and large for the vast majority of the season. And that's really what you want to do defensively, is say, okay, I know you normally get this, but I'm going to hold you below that.
Yeah.
And that actually is a mark of a good defense.
It is a really good defense. A team comes in and they pass for 400 yards a game. I know that's a very large number. And you hold them to 200 yards per game. You had a good day, given that they actually attempted to throw the ball at the normal clip that they do.
Right.
And they didn't completely destroy you in the run game. I mean, that's a good day. So you're holding people, shortening the game for them offensively, not allowing them to do the things that they normally do, not allowing them to just go out and run their offense the way they normally run it.
Right. And to the point that you made about like the Alabama game, giving your offense more opportunities to go out there and do something. And I think that is what this defense did over and over and over and over again last year. It was give the offense an opportunity again, because all right, we're going to get them off the field and hold them to no points on this drive. We're going to get them. You put us in a terrible position, but we only gave up 3 points here. Right. That to me is a good defense. Again, I'm not saying they're great or dominant, but they definitely, I don't think that overrated is the term I would use for this defense.
Yeah, some of these overrated people, and let me tell you, I want to call out the talent gap mafia, right? You cannot complain about the talent gap between Auburn and the rest of the league. I'm right in camera when I say this. You cannot complain about the talent gap between Auburn and the rest of the league, and then in the same breath call them overrated for what they achieved. Those two things don't go together. If there is a talent gap, then they overachieved. They overachieved. But I've noticed how often a lot of the loudest people on social media are, like the loudest fans, loud and wrong at the same time, that are about talking out of both sides of their mouth. We don't have talent, man. We don't have no talent. Well, this defense is kind of overrated. Wait, you just said they didn't have any talent. So if we don't have talent, then they should be at the bottom of the league. And I don't care about the schedule. If you suck, you suck.
Yeah.
Bad teams find ways to not get it done. This team defensively found ways to get it done. And this year, the way the schedule sets up, they have a really, really good opportunity to go out and continue that trend. I mean, if you're DJ Durkin, honestly, you just got paid.
Mm-hmm.
You just got a raise. And the first year after you get your raise, you have a chance to go out and completely substantiate why they gave you that raise. It all sets up great.
Sure.
I would say Georgia is going to be a little bit questionable offensively. Tons of talent there in Athens, as always, as we've come to expect under Kirby. However, I don't hear a lot of blustering from Georgia fans right now about Gunnar Stockton and the future of this offense. They had some really good players come through there. Brock Bowers might be the best tight end I've seen in a really long time. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I said I don't listen to Georgia fans, so I don't have the first idea what they're saying.
Well, I'll tell you, I hear what I hear from them is a lot of realism about where their team is at. We've talked about Alabama. Jalen Milroe got worse under Kalen DeBoer. Not significantly so, but he definitely did not move forward.
Yeah.
So if you subscribe to if you're not getting better, you're getting worse, then yeah, I would just say there is an opportunity, and he's gone. I'm not so sure Ty Simpson is an upgrade. And Kalen DeBoer is definitely an upgrade from Nick Saban. So if you're DJ Durkin, some of the teams that you normally have on your schedule, and there's a changing of the guard happening right now. Let me rephrase that. There's a chance for the changing of the guard that is manifesting itself in 2025,
Hmm.
where some other SEC teams are going to have a chance to start to flip the narrative in terms of who dominates this league. College football playoff is no longer going to be the Bama Invitational. They're losing their benefit of the doubt. Like they won 9 games in the SEC and they got left out of a 12-team playoff.
Right.
You know, there's a conversation happening right now about straight seeding and expanding the playoff and all this stuff. Greg Sankey may be pushing for 4 automatic qualifiers for the SEC.
He actually is. What he said at the spring meet, at the meetings was that he is in favor of just the conference champions or top 5 rank them in that way, and then it's and no auto bids for the rest of it. People thought that he was going to be pushing for the SEC gets a requisite number type of thing. And he's like, nah, like he's listening to what his coaches are saying. And the coaches are like, let our resume be able to be the thing that puts us in there and not just say, well, we're the SEC, so we should get this number of teams in.
I'll tell you what he's listening to. He's listening to the voice of reason, which is the history. History says that if I get my conference champion in and I just have to make a subjective argument for 4 teams, we're going to win because I just spent a decade building that bias.
Right.
So it favors them.
For sure.
Yeah. And I'll say this, right? Like the automatic qualifier thing, what I think that actually does is it actually limits the amount of teams that the SEC could get.
And that's what he and the coaches don't want. They don't want a limit. They want to say, hey, if we can get 8 teams in, let us get 8 in. If we can get 11 in, let us get 11 in. But don't tell me I can only have my conference champ plus 3 or 4.
Yeah, we created a whole slogan. It just means more that represents the subjectiveness of this conversation, which has always favored his league. Now, mind you, he's asked the schools to invest and do things, and they've all bought into that. And there's a reason why Texas A&M came to the SEC. This is it. Because you have a commissioner who is advocating and lobbying for everybody and not just one team.
Right.
That's how they left the Big 12. So now you're in a situation where if you're Auburn defensively, if you play well enough, you could get Auburn into one of those subjective spots. And if you win a game against one of those subjective bias teams like Bama or Georgia, they're on your schedule every year, you're going to be in. So the SEC only had 2 teams make the playoff last year, but so we're clear, 5 teams had a clear path, and they blew it. They gave the College Football Playoff Committee a reason to leave them out. Missouri, Alabama, Ole Miss all had clear paths to the playoff. Win 10 games and you're in. It's really that simple. But what was cool about last year is we saw the playoff committee set a precedent that said, if you're only going to win 9, we're going to go to these other conferences and we're going to pick their 10-win runner-ups. Because right now, you may only have one automatic qualifier, but without divisions, so without the ability for there to be like a weak Eastern Division champion that then goes on to the SEC championship, your conference runner-up is in. So, if Texas is an 11-1, there's going to be another 11-1 going in that game or 10-2 team in the league. That team is getting in.
Right.
And when you get the types of schedules that eliminating divisions now creates, it's always going to be somebody. There will never, mark my words, there will never be a year where there are not at least 2 teams in this conference with double-digit wins. It's just not going to happen. At least 2 teams are going to have double-digit wins, and those 2 teams are always going to get into the playoff. But what you do is you open the door for other conferences to get their double-digit runner-up into the playoff when your 3rd, 4th, and 5th teams don't handle their business.
Right.
That's why they don't want to expand to 9 conference games. Why? It doesn't help them. You want us to take away a chance to get those double-digit runner-ups.
I think they would, if they don't do the auto bid situation, they might be a little more open to it. But if you're going to do auto bids, they're like, nah, if our resume isn't what's going to get me in, then I'm not going to make my resume harder. Like, that's just not a thing.
Yeah. Coming back to, to the defense and whether they're overrated or not. And while we brought up this college football playoff discussion, this defense is good enough to get Auburn in that conversation.
For sure. They were good enough to get them in that conversation last year.
Last year. Yeah. It's good enough to get them in the conversation of, do they kind of deserve one of those, at-larges? Offensively, if Jackson Arnold's a 3,000-yard passer, I don't care if he passes for 3,000.5 yards. He's a 3,000-yard passer. He's not throwing double-digit interceptions on the season. Auburn's going to have a chance to be in that conversation come November, especially with this schedule.
For sure.
Now we've talked about the flow of the schedule quite a bit. You open up with Baylor in Waco. We'll find out how prepared they were when we see that game. You get 2 cupcakes, Ball State, South Alabama, and then you open SEC play at Oklahoma, at Texas A&M, and then home for Georgia. After that, you get Missouri, you get Arkansas, you get Kentucky, you get Vandy, you get Mercer. Come on, man. That is a very winnable stretch of football games. And it should serve as a jump off for Hugh Freeze to say, look, I know these first 2 years were rough, but this is why I told you guys to hang with me. This is why I told you guys, let me close this talent gap. This is why I need you to go to On to Victory and donate some money, because the more money I get, the more of this I can do. and I can keep DJ Durkin on the plains, and we could just keep this thing rolling. I don't know what Durkin's aspirations are. I'd be interested to sit down with him one day privately and just kind of find out if he wants to be, if he has head coaching aspirations again, if he wants to go back to that level. Is he a place in his life where he just wants to win and he enjoys coaching kids and, money is not an issue for him? But if he can hold this staff together, with the resources they have, with how recruiting is going, and eventually, if you give them long enough, they're going to find that one special player that completely changes the conversation for you. Is it Deuce Knight? Could it be one of these other kids? Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, and I'd say I use QB as an example because more of your destiny is in your hands. You can get really good wide receivers and have nobody to throw the ball to them.
Right.
Is it a running back? Is it Alvin Henderson? Is there a Heisman winner in this recruiting class that they just had or the one before? I think Cam Coleman could be that guy. I've started saying that early because I want to be first to say I think he has a potential to deliver a Heisman to the Plains. So this Auburn defensively has been good. And when you look at with 2010 as the outlier, I would say, look at what Auburn has been able to do in the years where they went undefeated or won the SEC championship. Those have usually been really, really good defensive teams.
Right.
Doing the types of things that we saw them do last year and the improved version of that this year should have them on the championship hunt. So I'm excited to see what it looks like.
Yeah, well, let's get over into some more conversation with you all in the chat, because so far you've heard what we had to say. We want to read the comments that you all have to say. Appreciate everybody who is joining the conversation with us here and live. Before we move on, make sure that you're doing your part to help bring more people into this conversation. That's sharing the live with somebody. Go ahead and hit the like button. We're going to get into our mid-roll here and talk about the people who kind of support what we do from a financial standpoint. And maybe you want to support us, and we'll tell you ways you can do that. But you are watching the Midweek Report. This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelikarangeroom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
As always, want to thank our title sponsor, The Rage Room. If you're in the Opelika area or Birmingham, you can visit The Rage Room at either location, 1510 2nd Ave, Opelika, Alabama, or 2616 7th Ave, South Birmingham, Alabama. The Rage Room, helping you get some rage out when life is raging all around you. Rage back at The Rage Room. They got axe throwing in Birmingham, but I've been told they have some axe throwing coming to Opelika as well, too. Very fun to do. You want to get on that action. Definitely want to thank our sponsors at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORTER to get 15% off that Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. And our friends at the Vibe Vault. Get fresh for the weekend. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road. It's actually Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. That's the Vibe Vault. Great members of the community. We appreciate my guy Steve Watkins for sponsoring this segment. Check us out on podcasts, every single podcast platform. We are there bringing you lots of great audio-only content. So head on over to Spotify, Apple, guys. You see all the content you can get here. Hit subscribe. Turn on automatic downloads. This helps us a ton. We ask you guys to do a lot of things. We ask you to buy things from our sponsors. We ask you to buy Patreon memberships. We ask you to give Patreon memberships. But if you want to help us, and this is something absolutely free you can do, head on over to your podcast platform on your phone right now and turn on automatic downloads. Also, you can help us out by turning on notifications in your YouTube app. So go to your YouTube homepage, hit the gear icon, hit notifications, and just make sure that you get notified every time we drop content. Doesn't matter, if you only got 5 minutes and you watch 5 minutes of our content, it helps us greatly. So we appreciate you guys for that. Just give us any time you can. Guys, visit our merch store. You can find that at thewarreport.com. Lots of great War Report merch, as well as Boog merch. Get your Boog on with a Boog hat, t-shirt, zip up, hoodie, sweater, however you want a Boog, we got you covered. The season is coming. I appreciate seeing you guys with our merch on out there in the wild. So please continue that. Last but certainly not least, sign up for a membership. $6 a month will get you there. We're going to be on the road for SEC Media Days at the College Football Hall of Fame, broadcasting live all week from there, bringing you guys lots of content, covering not just Auburn, but the entire conference. Now, if you don't know, Media Days goes Monday through Thursday. Hugh Freeze goes on Tuesday this year. So we'll get the Auburn head football coach earlier in the week this year. It's going to be fun being there, chopping it up with Josh, Peyton, Cole, and Greg McElroy, and all the guys we normally see every year at Media Days. So, again, help support our work by hitting that join button for your Patreon membership and tuning in SEC Media Days.
Yes, indeed. Let's get over here into this live chat first before we get into that. Appreciate our guy, Jazzy Joe, gifting 20 War Report memberships. He is always very generous in getting more people involved in Green Name Gang. So if you got a free membership courtesy of Jazzy Joe, go ahead and send him a thank you right now.
Check that email.
Let's see. Jonathan Boyson says, top 20 defense this year, second year in Durkin's system. Defense should be thinking less and just playing. There are people who feel as if this defense, listen, if you listen to the James Barnett, our Boog captain here in the chat right now, he thinks there could be top 10, maybe even top 5 defense. Guys like Ant Robinson think that this defense could be top 5 this year. So I am top 20 would definitely put you in that range. I'm not ready to go there yet. I mean, I think top 20 is possible. It depends on what categories that you're looking at, but they definitely have the talent to be in that conversation.
Yeah, look, top 20 defense this year, definitely. I think top 15, top 10 is where they should be bordering. We'll see how the first couple weeks of the season pan out. That will have a lot to say for it. But in SEC play last year, they were very good. They improve it all. I think, again, top 10 is not out of the question.
AU alum says the only way those stats are quote unquote good for the D is if we are scoring 30 points per game, which we weren't. I'd argue that those stats were good and probably a little bit better because the offense was giving you no help.
Yeah.
Again, it's average, right? Average is, and slightly above average in some statistics. Like I don't know what grading scale everybody else gets, but like if in most things you have a B and you have a couple of C's, it will average out to be a B, which is good.
Yeah, I would again
great dominant, any of those things. But even if you just let's not take any external narratives, blah, 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 and just look at the stats say average or slightly above average, which I would be good.
Yeah, I would just say again, this is why stats can be misleading. You look at, okay, you scoring 30 points a game. How are you scoring? Are you sustaining long drives? Are you scoring on short fields that the defense gave you, and then they have to go back on the field? The length of time of possession has a lot to do with that. The more time you spend on the field, the more yards you're going to give up. The more opportunity they have to put yards and points on you.
Right.
So it's deeper than, well, if we scored, then that's good. Well, I mean, it's not situationally good. It's either good or it's not, right? And to be good, they were good last year. They were great in some areas. They were not good in other areas. What we hope this year is that it all comes together and it's a more well-rounded performance from the defense that gives them an even greater chance, that maybe brings that points per game average down 2-3 points. You'd be surprised how much that can make a difference.
For sure.
Especially
2 or 3 points when you're only giving up just north of 21. You should win more games at 21, but you absolutely put yourself in a very different conversation where you're only giving up 17 or 18 points per game. Yes, you're in a very different conversation there.
That's Georgia levels of good in terms of points per game, but how you get there matters though. And that's all I'm saying. So I appreciate AU alum. Great. But like I said, I'm pushing back on the notion that it's only good if the offense does whatever.
Wesley Hilson, if the O does their part, the D numbers will be off the charts. Meaning, and I don't think he's giving you the opposite side of that. If the offense scored more, you'd win more games. What he's saying is, if the offense moves the ball, flips the field, changes field goal position, scores more points, where the defense is, you're kicking off to other teams rather than having to punt from your own 20 type of thing. Those change potentially what that defense is going to do as well. One thing you just said, time of possession. If you're on the field more as an offense, it gives your defense more time to rest. You'd actually be surprised how much more energized the defense is if your team is just scoring, even if you're giving up a bunch of, even if you're scoring quickly, you feel a lot different as a defense when it doesn't feel as if, man, we can't do anything wrong, because if we make a mistake, we will lose this game, as opposed to you can play a little bit more freely when man, our offense is going to get this right back. So I might take this chance a little bit on this play right here and go create some havoc, as opposed to just trying to be solid all of the time.
Yeah. Again, if the O does their part, meaning less time on the field for you, sustain the drives, not turning the ball over in opponent territory, right? Just making sure that you're putting them in good positions to get you the ball back as many times as they possibly can. I agree. If the offense does their part, there's a causality to it, right? We talked about the points per game in SEC play that they gave up, and we said 28 points per game would be good enough to win almost all those games. Well, in only one of those, they give up more than 30 points. It was Georgia. But if the offense sustains drives, i.e., remember the infamous fourth down at the beginning of the fourth quarter where they were down 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say they get that first down. They get a good play call. They execute. They get that first down. That's potentially points off the board for Georgia. It's points off the board for them. They don't have that opportunity to score while you are physically holding the ball. So it could make their numbers look even better, when you're scoring and sustaining drives. Part of the knock with, remember the hurry up, no huddle and the spread and the quick kick offenses that Gus used to employ, was those offenses were dangerous and they had the ability to hit you quick like lightning. Mm-hmm. The problem was you were putting your defense right back on the field because you scored so fast.
Right.
Remember in 2013, look, I was there at the Rose Bowl, and when Trey Mason busted open for that score, we were like, yes, and then we were like, oh, they left too much time on the clock, way too much time on the clock, and just enough time for Jameis Winston and homie to do what they did. It sucked. It was terrible. But, you know, that situation, those situations matter in this conversation when we talk defense. I think it's very nuanced when you talk about what they give up and what they don't.
Prince Chuku, our defense was mid in the SEC, though. So, yeah, a lot of those rankings, when you look back at the rankings chart in the conference, they were around 7th, 8th, 9th in a lot of those categories, which puts you right in the middle of the conference. But I will say the SEC had some really good defenses nationally.
That's where I was going. Yeah, it was a really good defensive conference last year.
I mean, it's a really good defensive conference most years. So I think some of the teams that had traditionally not been great defensively got much better last year. Like Ole Miss typically doesn't have a great defense. They had one of the better defenses in the nation last year. And so they jumped up in some statistical categories. So I think to compete in this conference, you absolutely need to perform better. Again, I'm not making the argument that Auburn was dominant defensively, but to be where Auburn was nationally, looking at how good the defenses in this conference are nationally, being 7th or 8th in the conference, but you're in the top 50 in the country, top 30 in the country, that's pretty good. That's still pretty good. Again, the argument for me is not they were dominant, they were amazing, they were one of the best defenses in the country. I think that they were a good, not great defense last year. But to be good, not great in the midst of some really great defenses, I think is still good.
Yeah, I would say this, right? Like, if I told you Auburn would give up 347 yards per game in 2025, that's it, 347 yards per game, most people will come back and be like, that's a pretty good defense. You know, last year, out of 16 teams, 10 of them gave up less than that. 10 teams in the SEC gave up less than 347 yards per game. That's absolutely insane. Now, if you're wondering, as a barometer, right, in the Big 12, half their league gave up more than 350 yards per game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams gave up more than 350 yards. Almost the exact opposite.
Right.
You had 10 teams give up less. They had 9 teams give up more. It was a good defensive league, man. It was a great defensive league last year.
Yeah, I agree. The league was amazing on defense. Marcus Holland, with the personnel last year, the D really maximized its potential, just had too many busted assignments.
Yeah, that's my thing. All right. Like, and I'll tell you, that's where I think they get better this year. You know, a lot of this young talent understanding the concepts, the defensive concepts a little better. It's an experience thing. They were young in some places. It was first year in DJ Durkin's system. That's why coaching continuity is so important, right? Busted assignments are it could be a sign of a couple things, but if we rule out the nefarious kind of like, oh, they didn't study the playbook or they're slouching, I think a lot of times it's just they're not able to process quick enough, or, you know, it's a learning thing. It's an experience thing.
Right.
So you should see that go down quite a bit this year if they make the kind of strides we think they're going to make.
Let's see. AU alum jumps back in. Everyone, all positions have to shoulder the burden. A 5-7 season is about W's at the end of the day, and as a team, you do what it takes to win. When it doesn't happen, they all take the heat. This whole the D did their job, this L is on the O is a rabbit hole as a team you don't want to go down.
Yeah, I agree. As a team, that's definitely how you want to look at it. As a fan, the defense did good and the offense did not do as good.
Yeah, I mean, I think
those are realities.
There's enough room to have a nuanced conversation and say the offense didn't hold up their end of the bargain, and I think that that's an okay statement to make, to say Yeah, internally in the locker room, you don't want the defensive players being like, "Man, offense screwed us." No, you want them to say, "Hey, man, we all gonna hold this L, and we're gonna try to do better the next game." Look, every time we're out there, we need to make a play. But as we who are sitting here looking at this, I think it's fair to say, yeah, man, that offense wasn't holding up their end.
Yeah,
And I'll go back to an analogy I've used before about moving furniture, right? If I'm a bystander on the outside watching people move a sofa, and one side of that sofa is significantly lower than the other side, and it's clear one side is dragging the other one through that process, yes, the sofa got moved or did not get moved. In this case, you didn't get it to where it was supposed to go because one guy is super tired now because he's doing all the work. I, from the outside, can say, man, this one guy was slacking the whole time. He wasn't doing his part of the job. Now, do I want those two people who are trying to move the sofa bickering about who's lifting more? No, I just want them to move the sofa.
Yeah,
but I can definitely sit here and say, hey, buddy, right here on the left side need to hold his weight a little bit better.
I'll take it a step further. When DJ Durkin was signing his extension, he did not say, you know what, I'm not sure I deserve this. We all took the 5 and 7. His side did better, so he got a raise.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Brad with the you need to yell pivot.
Pivot.
It's a Fringe reference for those of you who don't get that one. I like it. Let's see. Brad Browning, third down defense and forcing turnovers is their biggest improvement areas. If they still but they still kept Auburn in games.
Yeah, ultimately they kept points off the scoreboard in critical moments. And that's what you hope they continue to do, and then improve third down defense. I would argue that they were okay at forcing turnovers in spots, right? Like they left some turnovers on the board there, some dropped pick sixes. Like, man, there's some opportunities, but those were still busted plays for the offense. Those were still stops for them.
Yeah.
Right. So the turnover number you hope goes up, certainly. But it takes a little luck sometimes. I don't know. Like I'm not too hard on them in terms of turnover.
Speaking of like, it takes a little luck sometimes. Think about that touchdown that Georgia scored at the end of the half last year, where the Auburn defender deflects the pass and it bounces directly to the Georgia player in the end zone. And you're just like, bro, what are we like? What are we seriously
doing? Yeah.
Like that just how often is that happening? And so, you might as well take 7 points off the board for Georgia right there, because it's like, bro, like they made the right play and it just caroms into the hands of, like, Georgia didn't out scheme Auburn in that instance. It was just an absolutely ridiculous bounce of the football in that sense. So, Miller House, off the subject of defense, but speaking of Heisman potential guys, thinks Eric Singleton will win the Heisman this year. Thinks he's going to be the standout guy on that offense.
I wouldn't be mad at it. Look, man, if he wins the Heisman, that means Jackson Arnold had a phenomenal year. So I'm all about this energy here. Yeah. Any receiver wins the Heisman, your passing game is popping, and a lot of opportunities. DeMarcus Alston's going to run wild. Like, a lot of things are going well for you when you have Heisman candidate wide receivers on your team.
For sure.
Man, you remember that year Larry Fitzgerald went wild. Was it Pitt? He went. He was in the conversation for the Heisman. You think about recent receiver that have won it, Devontae Smith. It's catching balls from Mac Jones. He had a prolific year throwing the ball that year. It's so much fun to watch these guys, man. And to think that Auburn has that level of talent at wide receiver this year just makes me hopeful. So, hopefully we see something great from them.
Last one here. Big man Bruce Pearl says, how's Jay Hardy looking as far as potential output? I feel like he could play a solid role in the defensive line. I meant to look this up before. I think I did a Jay Hardy watch the film for our Green Name game, which that would not be applicable to you, unfortunately, there, my guy. But let me make sure. Yes, I do have a Jay Hardy watch the film that's out there on the channel for my Green Name gang. So if you want to see that, members and new members who were part of the giveaway that Jazzy Joe just did, you can go do that. But I will say, I think that Jay Hardy is going to be a solid contributor along the defensive line. He definitely, listen, he got an SEC scholarship out of high school. I think he has SEC caliber potential there as far as a rotational player. And I love his motor. So I think he is going to be a solid contributor there along that defensive front at a defensive tackle position. All right. So before we get out of here, I did say I wanted to come back to this really briefly. Thoughts, Mike G, on the return of Tahaad Pettiford to Auburn. Again, we'll talk more about this on a Lobtown episode, but Tahaad Pettiford makes it official today. He is coming back out of the NBA draft to return to Auburn for his sophomore season. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Tahaad coming back is exactly what the doctor ordered.
For sure.
Now, similarly to Janai Broome, he went through the draft evaluation process, got the information, and probably had some really good advisors in his ear that said, hey, could be in your best interest to return to college for a year. Go rack up the accolades, go dominate the college level for another year and come back, and you will absolutely be a top 10 pick. I love this for him. I love even more that he doesn't have to give up a bunch of money to make this decision, right? Because you risk a lot to return to college in a year like this.
Yes.
Tomorrow is not promised for anybody. Yeah, I hate bringing up the injury thing because you don't want to put that juju on anybody. But I think that's the math that a lot of these athletes are doing is, what if I get injured?
Yeah. Here's what I would say in regard to that, though, is because of NIL, what if you get injured your rookie year in the league? Like, it's not like you're not risking less injury by going to play in the NBA, right? And so you're going to risk injury by playing the sport. At least now you can get paid in the interim as well.
Yeah. Look, I thinking about how this roster projects now, like, I'm thinking to myself, if you're Bruce Pearl, and I talked about this repeatedly, in college basketball, it's the only sport where you really have to worry about your best player leaving after 1 year.
Yes.
Your best player can be a true freshman.
Well, not the only sport, but baseball. I mean, you can have your best player leaving others, but as far as like the big sports, Auburn, between football and basketball, your best player now, transfer portal now has changed that. But as far as like going pro, yes, best player leaving after a year, basketball is it.
It's tough. Yeah. We saw 1 year of Carmelo Anthony at the college level, gone, NBA. Decent decision for him. But you understand, I've always felt like this NIL would help improve the quality of the college game by keeping kids in school longer.
For sure.
And so this is what you're getting an opportunity to get if you're Auburn. He probably got the advice that a lot of Auburn fans wish Sharif Cooper had gotten.
Yeah, but listen, different conversation for Sharif Cooper, right? Like, come back another year and improve your draft stock, but you're not getting paid in college.
Yes, right.
If NIL had been around, I venture to say Sharif Cooper comes back for a second season at Auburn. I just think he does.
Facts. In lieu of going to play in the D League or something like that for, some dollars, but there are guys at the top college guys are getting D League money.
Right. Correct.
Stick around college, be a student, have fun, be the big man on campus. This changes the conversation about this roster, because I honestly felt like a lot of fans watching him dunk on folks and going through the draft process, they have resigned themselves to the fact that Todd was going to be gone.
He's out of here crowd was super loud amongst the Auburn contingent. Actually, a lot of people who didn't want to see him come back to Auburn from opposing fan bases were driving that narrative pretty heavily as well.
Yeah,
out there on social media. And so to see him return, and listen, he is going to be the only player back from last year's Final 14. The only one. There's not a single other returning player on that team, except for maybe some guys that were walk-ons on the bench. But as far as scholarship athletes that got playing time, he's it.
Think about the guys they lost, right? Dylan Cardwell, the Auburn guy. Chaney Johnson, gone. Denver Jones, gone. Chad Baker, gone. I'm like, Ja'Kai Howard didn't play a
Janai
whole lot.
Broom.
But, Janai Broom obviously gone. And I was starting with the guys who maybe had an opportunity to return. But, just Dylan didn't have a chance to come back. But still, you've got so many guys gone. And if you're Tahaad Pettiford, Bruce Pearl is going to look to you to say, how you now represent the culture that is Auburn basketball.
Yeah.
You
He's
carry
the only
the
person
flag.
that's tasted that Final Four Auburn run. He's the only person on that team that can. I remember when we did the fireside with Janai Broom, Chaney Johnson, and
Leor Berman.
And Leor Berman, right? And they were having the conversation with Chaney Johnson about what it was like to play in the jungle. And he was like, they were just prepping him. He's like, you've never experienced this before.
Yeah.
Tahaad Pettiford's the only guy on this roster that can impart that onto somebody from a player's perspective and say, dude, guys, when we get into playing games that matter in that environment, it's electric. Nobody else can have that conversation with them except for, which is crazy, a true sophomore on your team who is now going to be asked to shoulder a leadership responsibility with guys who are seniors, some of them fifth-year guys. He's going to be a leader on this team from the fact that he's a point guard and the fact that he's the only player returning that can boast, I've played in a Final Four. I was there in San Antonio last year against the eventual national champion. How many of you guys can say that? None of them except for Todd.
Those moments where we would see Janai go over and calm down Chad Baker, right? Or Chaney Johnson would go over and he would get guys like, head in the game now. We got to stay focused here. Don't overreact. Don't argue with the refs. That's Tahaad Pettiford this year.
He's got to be, yeah.
He is going to be, as a sophomore, as a true sophomore, he's going to be the elder statesman. He's going to be the guy that Bruce and Stephen Pearl look to say, all right, I need a good bucket. I need leadership in the huddle. Like I need a guy to go out and carry the flag for what Auburn basketball is day in and day out. He's very mature for his age when you talk to him in these interviews and you understand that, he is just a great kid. What a great pickup for Auburn basketball. I made a lot of comparisons to him and Aiden Holloway, right? And Bama fans were up in arms about it. They hated it. They thought you're always comparing the two, and Bruce sold them a bill of goods and all this stuff. Well, Todd's coming back. I hate to break it to you. And he went further and at times carried Auburn as a freshman.
Yes, no, that's a fact. That is absolute fact. Tahaad Pettiford was a game changer guy who made additional win like that. A couple of wins last year don't happen if Tahaad Pettiford doesn't show up the way he does.
Absolutely.
Georgia on the road. I'd put that Houston game out there in Houston as one of those games. Like Tahaad showed up in some very big moments. Like Kentucky, though he shot the ball well that game, and Miles Kelly was amazing, and Auburn blew him out eventually in that game. But people forget Denver Jones didn't play in that game for the most part, right? He got hurt real early in that game. Tahaad had to play heavy minutes. Tahaad Pettiford, second half of that game versus Michigan. Amazing performance. Tahaad gets you additional W's last year with the way he played in certain spots.
Absolutely. It's just, like I said, Auburn had just the recruiting has been going so well, and the portal has kind of changed the game. They made some big pickups in the portal, right? And they continue to do well. Okafor is one that, I'm really interested to see how that goes. But I think that Tahaad Pettiford has the opportunity to make the sort of impact that we saw from Walter Clayton Jr. Now, think about that Final Four game. I hate it because it was a bad omen, and I will never do it again. But There was you and I were there in San Antonio, and I took a picture of Walter Clayton Jr. like near the baseline, and he was warming up, and I just had a caption on Twitter that said, "This man has to be stopped." I knew in my head, I'm just thinking, this is all about if Auburn can contain Walter Clayton Jr. Spoiler alert, he was not stopped. 34 points on 11 of 18 shooting and perfect from the free throw line in a Final Four game. And they lost, and they won that game by 6 points. Walter Clayton Jr. absolutely blasted Auburn. And Tahaad Pettiford has the ability to have that sort of impact as a single player on a team. Because Clayton he was just a bucket.
Yeah, for sure.
He was just a bucket. He was just a guy to just go out.
In the most clutch of times, he was coming up with buckets over and over and over again.
Just crazy to me. But we saw flashes of that with Tahaad Pettiford. He was just a bucket. He'd go out and he was hitting turnarounds. He was driving to the hoop. He was doing all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Walter Clayton Jr.
He needs
was
to make that next step as a leader this year in order for Auburn to be able to still be in the same kind of conversations they were in last year.
Yeah, Clayton Jr. he's the senior. He's a very experienced guy that went out there and played that sort of ball. And Todd's going to be a true sophomore with the opportunity to have that same impact. I don't know, man. It's clear to me that there is some really, really this could be a special run for Auburn basketball. Because trust me, they've reloaded. They've reloaded big time.
Yeah, the roster is
going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
It'll be really fun to watch. The challenge for Bruce Pearl always is, how do you get these guys to come together and play as a team?
Right.
How well do these pieces fit together? Now, you guys know I do Locked On UCF, and I cover that team in basketball. And when you look at what they had and what Auburn took from them, it was clear that they got a talented player, a very talented player. But I'm looking at him and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, is he what they were trying to paint him out to be in terms of, like I said, like they were calling him a selfish player, right?
The UCF folks were?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like, I don't know if he was selfish or if he just honestly felt like he had to do everything because that's what that team was.
Yeah, I find that, I mean, I've only watched maybe like 4 games of his, and I still have to do some film breakdown on that stuff. But the style of play of that offense was very up and down the floor, like run and gun type of stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know that you can call a player selfish when your coach is he's encouraging you to go out there and just put up a bunch of shots quickly.
Keyshawn Hall said, I want to be coached by the best in the game. He feels like that's Bruce Pearl, which means he understands that the balance of minutes isn't going to be anywhere what it was for him at UCF, where they really didn't have a choice. Game after game. We talked about this on Locked On UCF about how talented they were at the one. The problem was they got whole nights with 2 points from the bench in Big 12 play, and they just kept losing. I mean, they had 2 shots to take down Kansas that they should have won. They lost to Houston by 1 point. Another Final Four team, right? Like they lost to Iowa State by a couple of points. Yeah, this was a really, really good team that UCF had, and Keyshawn Hall was the leading scorer in the Big 12, and now he's playing for Bruce Pearl. And he may not average 36 minutes a game or whatever, but what I think is that the minutes that he does play are going to be more effective and more efficient because you're going to have to cover everybody. You have to cover the whole floor. And you've got a guy who can complement you in scoring. They had a guy on that team, Darius Johnson, who was their other kind of like senior guy who stepped up. Jordan Ivy Curry, you would see in spots, right? But really, it was Keyshawn Hall or bust for the most part.
Right.
So he lost a lot of close games, and now he's got a wealth of top talent around him. And if he trusts his teammates, especially, I'm interested to see how him and Tahad gel, because what
that's
I
going to
think,
be very interesting.
I think you're going to see a lot. Like we have a podcast called Lobtown. I have a feeling there are going to be a lot of Lobtown specials about Tahad to Keyshawn. Just oops.
I'd love to see it.
Oop after oop, man. Those two will potentially be very fun to watch playing together. And Tahad has proven like he'll go out and he'll just go get buckets when he's when he's on fire, but he'll dish.
Yeah, no, I think that's an underrated portion of his game. Was his ability to be a playmaker, which again, I think people have to remember Tahaad Pettiford did not begin the season. None of the offseason was he tasked with that duty. That was something that they thought he was going to be a scorer for Auburn last year. And he got asked when it was clear the JP Pegues experiment was not going to go the direction that they wanted, to come in and play more of a lead point guard for this team. So back half of the season, it was pretty much on the job training for him. Thanks. I think him getting a full off season of this is because if you look at this roster, there's not a lot of point guards on this team. So he's going to be asked to be a point guard, and that's what he's going to be asked to be in the league. Well, now whether it's a true facilitating point guard or a scoring point guard, that's neither here nor there, but you will be the guy who's going to be getting us into our offensive sets. I'm interested to see what type of offense that Coach Pearl and company build around Tahad, because that offense was built around Janai Broome last year.
Yes, that's
Are
true.
they going to shift the focus now and say, hey, you're our guy who we're trying to get to the NBA? You came back for another year like Janai did. We're going to make sure you get your opportunities, and we're going to build this offense around you. I think it puts you in a very different conversation with Tahaad Pettiford next year.
Yeah, he's going to begin the year as a National Player of the Year candidate. Tahaad Pettiford will begin the year as a National Player of the Year candidate.
He'll probably make first team All SEC preseason, all of that. Like, he's going to get all of the hype. And it's going to be interesting to see, because last year he wasn't one of the hyped guys. He will not be an under radar. Oh man, he's underappreciated, blah blah blah, that Bruce Pearl likes to say about it. He's not going to get that next year. He's going to come into the season and people are going to expect Tahaad Pettiford to be dynamic, and I'll be interested to see how he delivers on that for this team.
Yeah, look, man, Tahad is already a household name. When you look at the TikToks and the basketball accounts out there, and they're all posting Tahaad Pettiford edits, he's already a household name. These young people know who he is, man. And they're, as a Jersey kid, coming out of there, man, listen, he's representing for his hometown. I love Tahaad Pettiford in an Auburn jersey. It's absolutely insane that he's decided to come back. I love this for him. And, I know Bruce Pearl loves it more, because on the back half of his career, I think what Bruce wants to do is just maintain, and this is why he's asked for so much money in NIL, right? He doesn't have 3-4 years to rebuild a starting five. Right. No. Give me the money to go out and get 5 to 8 really good players right now. And I'll put them together and I'll figure out how to make a Final Four team out of them. That's what he needs. That's what the better coaches are getting now, and that's what it takes. So Tahaad Pettiford, whoo, boy, like, look, man, if you have not experienced an Auburn home basketball game, it is an absolute A+ sporting experience right now. Top 20 sporting experience in the country, Auburn home basketball game. It's loud. My girlfriend and my sister went to go see, I think, Auburn, Tennessee this past year. It was just insane for them to be able to sit there and take it all in. And remember, my sister was in school with you and I when you could find basketball tickets on the ground outside of Beard Eves.
Right. So
it was wild for her to sit there in $500 seats and think, wow, like this, people are going crazy. Now, I didn't pay $500 for these seats, for the record, but, It's everything that you hoped would happen at Auburn when Bruce Pearl got hired as coach. Now it's here, and I would encourage Auburn fans before we get out of here to just enjoy this ride, because this is going to be a special stretch of years that we see before Bruce Pearl calls it quits, that we may not see again in our lifetime. Hopefully, whoever they hire, whether it's the legacy Stephen Pearl, they can carry the flag. But getting guys like Tahaad Pettiford to come back is just not something we would have seen in the past. And I think the culture that they've created and the support of the fans and the feeling of making it to the Final Four, I don't know if you would agree with this, but I think if Auburn gets bounced in the regional and the Sweet 16, Todd's gone. And hear me out on this one. I think getting the taste, coming so close, one game from that championship game, sticks in your craw, man. And he's like, let's run it back. If I come back and you give me some pieces, let's run it back.
Yeah.
Do you think
I don't know. We'll see.
Do you think that maybe Tahad waited to see who they were going to pick up in the portal to see what the team would be
I
like?
honestly think that he was really I think he was really wanting to be able to get into the NBA, and he just, nothing that they got made them feel he and his team felt secure enough for them to put their hope in it. And he wasn't getting the guarantees he wanted. So he was like, listen, the team that they put around me at Auburn is going to be good again. So I think the team put around him at Auburn made him more comfortable with the decision to come back. Okay. But I don't know that it made the decision for him.
Right. Because he wants to win. And from asking him questions in the post game, you've been there too. It's one thing's clear about Tahad Pettiford is he wants to win. You don't want to go and just rack up a bunch of stats just to say he was the man. He wants to win basketball games.
Right.
He wants to bring home hardware and bring home championship for Auburn. So if he wasn't going to have the opportunity to do that, I think that maybe tips the sails a little bit more in the NBA's favor. But the fact that he has the opportunity to do that, to get back to that Final Four stage, to see what it's like. San Antonio, man, that's not a short drive for Auburn fans.
Right.
And they were deep out there. He understands, man, look, the culture is real. What you've built is part of what keeps kids like Tahad Pettiford in school. For one, I get to make multiple M's. I can stay in school and just be a student and go to class. Overrated, but it's part of the process. I get to make a bunch of money. I get to be the guy, and I get to be in a place where it's funny. They talked about in Bruce Pearl talking about Tahad Pettiford, and Tahad talking about Bruce. He called Bruce his guy. He said, that's my guy. And he said it in a way where it was, you understand, he's getting hard coaching from Bruce Pearl, but
for sure,
he understands it. This is part of the process. And it validated by the fact that they went all the way to the Final Four. And at times when he did not play his best. But those guys really trusted Bruce. Yeah. And look, whatever dream he sold them, it worked. It didn't work for Aiden, but it worked for Todd. He's just different, man. He's a different type of athlete. Brian Matthews from AuburnSports.com said this next to me. Like, we were early in the season, we were at an Auburn home game. And he looked at me and he said, when we saw Tahad hit the first shot of the game, he just looked at me and he was like, and we both understood something in that moment. Right? Like, Tahad is truly different. He really is different. And he said he looks comfortable out there in a way that Aiden never looked. Aiden Holloway never looked that comfortable on the court. You could just tell. And that's no analysis. That's no gaudy stats. That's not anybody pretending like they're some big basketball guru. It was just, you could just look with your eyes and just tell there's something different about this kid, man. So it's going to be fun to watch. I'm glad that he's decided to return. I hope he got everything that he wanted out of the deal. But let me tell you something. Tahaad Pettiford got a deal, it means somebody else didn't because he got paid. Somebody's little NIL deal got crushed by Tahaad's deal because he definitely got paid.
For sure, for sure. All right, let's get out of here, man. Tell the people ways that they can support what we have going on at the War Report.
Well, you guys already know the deal. I want to thank our title sponsor, The Rage Room. If you're in the Opelika area, visit them at 1510 2nd Ave, Opelika, Alabama. If you're in Birmingham, 2616 7th Ave South, downtown Birmingham. The Rage Room. When life makes you lemonade, rage on them at the Rage Room. Now, I think they have lemonade. I think you can drink some lemonade while you're there as well, too. You can throw axes. You can just get everything out on some baby strollers or whatever it is they have there for you to break. And I will say, if you've never broken a car windshield with a bat, oddly satisfying. The Rage Room has multiple opportunities for you to do that. Guys, join as a patron member. $6 a month will get you there. We appreciate all our patron members. This community is growing fast, but we have room for more growth, so we appreciate it if you guys sign up. 20 gifted memberships given away on today's live stream. So we appreciate our members for doing that. Our guy Jazzy Joe always coming through. But look, guys, sign up as a member. We have some changes that are coming to the channel. I hinted earlier, and you want to be a member so that you can continue to take advantage of certain content. We'll announce that at that time. But become a member. Please just help support the work that we're doing at SEC Media Days this year. Again, bringing you guys lots of content quick and fast. I saw this on Twitter last year, but I'll repeat it because it's so true. Nobody in the Auburn beat puts out more content from SEC Media Days than we do. We are absolutely there working our butts off for you guys, so please help us out. Also want to thank our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORTER to get 15% off that Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has you covered. And our friends at the Vibe Vault, not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Sweetie in Phoenix City, Alabama. Look, get fresh for the weekend with our friends at the Vibe Vault. Check us out on podcasts, every single podcast platform. We are there bringing you lots of great audio-only content. The Auburn Express Uptempo College Loop and Just the Sec pods, as well as the War Report gaming channel. A little something different there for you guys, but support our content by downloading our podcast on your favorite podcast platform and make sure you turn on automatic downloads. That means on YouTube as well, because they put there's no longer a YouTube podcast app. It's just all YouTube, but you can hit that gear icon in the top right corner of your YouTube app, click on notifications, and then make sure that you turn on notifications so that you get all the notifications as well as the notification bell on our channel. Thanks, guys, so much for doing that for us. We appreciate it. Check out our merch store. We got lots of great stuff for you there at thewarreport.com. So whether it's War Report merch or if you just want a bug, because you're going to have lots of reasons to bug come football season, get your bug merch. Got bug hats, T-shirts, zip-ups, hoodies, whatever you're looking for. We got it there. So we appreciate you guys for doing that. As always, if you're watching this on replay, do us a favor and hit that super thanks button. If you're on your phone, it's right there in the corner by the comments. If you're on your desktop, in the menu right under the video, it's there. But it's a great way to support our content too. Lots of great super chats live. But if you want to get on the super chat action after the fact, super thanks is there. We appreciate you guys for doing that.
Before you guys get out of here today, make sure that you share the content with somebody out there on social media. You can subscribe to our channel or just give us a thumbs up. None of those things cost any money. A lot of things we ask you to do supporting us cost some money. That does not at all. It's just a couple of clicks. You can follow us at The War Report on X and Instagram, TW Report on TikTok. Back at you with more great Auburn Express content later on this week. I got more film reviews coming for you guys later on this week. Got a Lobtown episode talking about Tahaad Pettiford and the other player that Auburn just got. A little Auburn women's basketball coming for you guys later on this week. But we are out of here until the next time. And as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.